Gary in South Dakota says there's some debate who wrote the Pentateuch. Some say Moses, some say multiple authors. What is your opinion? Great question, Gary. The Pentateuch, of course, is the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. And the traditional teaching on it is that Moses is the author of the Pentateuch. That was traditional both all the way through Judaism, and still is today in Judaism, and conservative Judaism at least. It was true all the way up until probably the 1850s in the church, that it was just exclusively understood that Moses was the author of the Pentateuch. But in the 1850s and much more even in the 1870s, 1880s, there came to be something known as higher criticism or German rationalism. Now, rationalism or higher criticism, it's all the same thing. And what it did is look at the first 5 books of the Bible and said, this is not revelation, this is rationalism. And so they said, rationally, who wrote these things? And they began to pull out some patterns, and they said, well, there's some of the book of Deuteronomy, for example, that sounds like it uses the word Yahweh a lot. So we'll call them the Yahwists. And then there's some that sounds like sounds priestly, so we'll call it the priestly. And then there's, they had JEDP. There were 4 of them. I don't remember exactly what all those stand for, but they said there were 4 groups of writings just by the tone of it. Now, if you really get in and look and you say, okay, show me these, they split up verses even sometimes and say, well, this is from the J source, and this is from the E source, and this is from the D source. Now, they've never found the J source or the E source or the D source or the P source, and yet what it was is a means of undercutting the Word of God, saying, can we really trust it? Well, we only trust the J source, not the P source, or not the D source. And it went through this matter. Now, it is higher criticism that gave birth to liberalism within the church. And I'm talking about classic liberalism that then said, well, Jesus was not born of a virgin. That was someone's idea and someone's interpretation. And so all of that higher criticism is where the multiple authors comes from. Nobody outside of a higher criticism world, typically in academia, says that. Now, what I think, and I've got a longer teaching, or done some longer teaching on this, the book of Genesis especially gives us a record, and it says, now these are the generations of. And there are 5, 6 times that it goes, now these are the generations of. And what I believe, and I think there's good evidence for this that we could look into sometime, but what I believe is that God gave a revelation, for example, to Adam, and Adam wrote it down. And then he handed those tablets, if you will, on to Seth. Well, Seth picked up from there, and he wrote down. He handed those on to, the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And this came down. This is how Moses got it. He received these, and what we see in Moses, and I think, again, if we could really dig into this, it'd take about an hour to do, but we could dig in and say this is very much the matter of an editor who's taking these books and pulling them together and saying, now we've left the tablet of Adam and we're going to the tablet of Seth and onward. I have a little bit of this in my book, The Bible Graphically Presented. So I think there's really good evidence that Moses is the author and compiler of all but the very few verses, of course, that talk about Moses' death. And so I would, my opinion is Moses is the author / editor of the Pentateuch. Very good.